Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots podcast and YouTube channel. Once again, we are joined by Ryan Taylor for part 3 of Ryan Taylor special. This is becoming a monthly thing now, Ryan. It's every month you're cropping up on you.
I think it's getting worse than them Too Fast, Too Furious movies, isn't it? We're going to have more than them.
The Rock's going to pop up in a bit.
Yeah.
This one is going to be slightly different, though. So on this one, it's not a question and answer or an interview with yourself. What it is going to be is you talking us through your ultimate starting 11 from the players that you played alongside in your career. We've been having a conversation beforehand in relation to this one. You've already got your formation all lined up. You changed it at the last minute, something which Steve Bruce can't do. But you've managed to change yours, mate, at the last hurdle. So you've gone for a 4-2-3-1, if that's correct.
I have, yeah. I think I originally told you I was a 4-4-2 man, but when I looked at my players, I have to go 4-2-3-1.
So I think you might have changed it 3 times. Well, twice, sorry. I think you went with 4-4-2, then you changed it to 4-3-3, and now 4-2-3-1. Is that because you couldn't shoehorn players in certain positions?
Yeah, I'm a one-dimensional manager. No, listen, it just with the players, I had to get rid of, get in. It just sort of seems like it works.
So this team right now that you're going to go through, could this team challenge for anything in the Premier League, in your mind? If they're to be placed in the Premier League right now, could they win anything, whether that be the Premier League or a cup?
I'd definitely go along the lines of cup, yeah. Because if you like, I never ever got that luxury of playing in a team that was league winners. But I look at my team and think there's some top players in there. There's a few goals.
Great. Well, let's get straight down to it. So, starting in goal, mate. Who have you gone for in goal?
Okay. 2 goalies stick out in mind in my career, and one who I'm very good friends with is Chris Kirkland. Very good goalkeeper, just injured a lot. But he's going to hate me. But I had to get rid of him because this lad proved his worth, especially in the years I played with him, and for such a young goalie, and then obviously he went on and obviously plays for his country and has done really well. Is Tim Krul, just because of his all-round presence. He was never shy. He was a good guy in the dressing room. Could have set a few. And he was a winner. He hated losing, hated conceding goals. And I just went with Tim because I played more games with Tim than I did with Big Kirky.
Tim Krul's career at Newcastle United, I think, when he first broke onto the scene, I think it was, you'll know it exactly, but it was a European game where he got his debut for Newcastle. Was it under Glenn Roller? It was, wasn't it?
Well, we talked about Glenn, God rest him, on a previous episode of Extra Time, and that's one of the instilling moments of Glenn Roder's managerial career. That picture of him having an arm round, I think it was Palermo, having an arm around Tim Krul at the end of the game. He didn't just make his debut, but he made some fantastic saves that game, and from then, obviously, Gibbons left, Harper's became number 1, but Harper got his injuries and Krul just kept. I mean, even that first game of the championship season, Ryan, we talked about so much in the first episode. Steve Harper got injured. Krul comes on, makes some great saves. We end up drawing the game 1-1, and I always think that that's a very important point in that season to build on that. We go to West Brom, who we're going to be fighting for the title or promotion with, which we end up doing, and we end up drawing 1-1, and we kick on from there. And Tim Krul, seemed to be that trusty number 2, and then he ends up being number 1 from probably halfway through the next season and onwards.
Yeah, he was a goalkeeper, and fair play to him because he had big Fraser Forster challenging him, and in my eyes, Fraser for me was just a bigger presence. He was massive, and I always thought if I looked at them, Tim's very slight, not a very big guy. Fraser, big commanding guy. I'm thinking he's going to be your goalie, but then it was Tim. And I would have on appearance and look, I'd have just gone, well, Big Fraser's probably the one who's going to get his chance, but then Tim gets his chance and never looked back.
I think Tim Krul, I'm probably guilty of this. And when I look back at Tim Krul's career, then he had a fantastic run at Newcastle United. Of course, he does, and even more so now that like you mentioned, international football. Now he's fantastic football at Norwich as well there. But with Krul, I think towards the end of his career, before he left Newcastle United, there were so many goals that were going past him, and fans were putting him at fault and at blame for some of those goals. And like I said, now I probably hold my hands up and think I was probably a bit too harsh on him, because careers wise, he was fantastic for this club.
Yeah, no, he did. He done well. Lonely place though, being a goalie, I imagine. Horrible. I bet. Because the minute you concede 1 or 2 and you think, oh, it's my fault, and you're dreading that next shot, I bet you. So, fair plays. You need to be odd to be a keeper, and I'll say that. And they all are. I've never met a normal goalkeeper.
A lot of people
it's supposed to be nuts as well.
Yeah, they're a different breed. I mean, let's face it. Would you rather score, or would you rather me boot the ball at you? Like, and
true.
so why would you want to get the ball lamped at you every day in a week, as opposed to someone who could just go and like float one in the top corner? It's like, got to be odd to be a goalie, mate.
Yeah, great. And obviously Tim Krul had that fantastic performance against Spurs as well.
Yeah.
I think he must have saved about 20 shots that game. Yeah. I think did we not win 1-0 as well? Did
Yeah,
Perez not score the winner in that?
Remy
Remy?
Remy.
But yeah, right. So moving further up the field, next up to your defence. So you've gone further back.
Yeah, I've gone further back. My right back, I've put him in, even though I trained with him a lot. And he was there throughout the time when I was injured and moved on. Again, I just loved the way he played, because he was just robust. He just loved to get up. He loved defending. He loved getting in, building up attacks and stuff like that. It's Matthew Dabushi. And you know what? I wish earlier on I completely forgot about him, but he was a nutter on the sauce. He couldn't just have 1 or 2. That wasn't him. It was either no drinks or 40. It was like, and I completely forgot about him. But now I look at him and think of him like he was my nutter. But as a player, he's gone in there as a player and a person, because he come into our dressing room and we had a close knit French group, but they never sort of kept themselves away from the English or the Argentinians, and they always got involved. But and as a guy, he was top guy, and a good player who I enjoyed training with and playing with when I got the chance.
Another player who got a big move as well.
Yeah, and obviously played for his country, so got recognised and gets his move, but yeah, good all round solid right back.
Yeah, you mentioned previously as well that you said Johan Kabay used to keep himself away from the likes of after train events, as you can put it. But obviously, he was best friends with Dabushi. One of the reasons Dabushi came to the club. It's just a strange, obviously, polar opposites, really, when you think about good friends. But like I said, Dabushi absolutely crackers, and Johan Kabay was quite reserved.
Yeah, I know. And again, it's like the old saying, isn't it? Opposites attract, and they were complete opposite, but best mates off the pitch. Which you would never have put them two together on a daily basis. But yeah, just they obviously clicked.
Yeah, I think how long did he spend at the club? Was it 2 years he spent at Newcastle? Wasn't it a large amount of time that he was at the club? And he was one of those players. Was it Janmaat that came in to replace Dabushi?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Daryl Janmaat that came in. Right, so moving across into your centre-back positions.
Well, I had to put him in because he was Mr. Newcastle. I had to put Tails in because I'd spent a lot of time in my youth when the England setups playing with Tails. And then obviously in the Newcastle days, I played a lot with Tails. And he was just, for as much of the camaraderie, he obviously the playing up and all the acting and everything else, and he was solid. Tails was just like, he wasn't amazing on the ball, but what he was if you said, I knew centre forwards hated going up for a header with him because his elbows were sharp, like bosh. And he'd be like, what? But so as a centre half, I mean, I could have chose some proper footballing centre halves who I've played with, but I've tried to keep this a lot Newcastle. But Tails was, for me, I just put him in there because I played a lot with him, and when I played with him, I enjoyed that like little relationship we had, especially when I played right back and he was right centre half. Because when I played left back, I'd never see him because it would be Colo normally on the left. But yeah, for Tails, he goes in just purely because he was a centre forward's nightmare. Especially, he had some good tussles with the likes of Drogba and your big strikers. He was never shy to throw his head in where it hurt. So yeah, Tails goes in just on merit.
Yeah, it's a show, to be honest with you. Like you said there, Mr. Newcastle, and if you're going to want one player to represent the club in regards to understanding as a fan's point of view, then you could probably argue Tim Krul. Obviously, of course, he is Dutch, but he spent a lot of his time at this club from a youth growing up, and he understood the club as well. We mentioned on the previous podcast about how upset he was losing a derby. But like you've said there, Taylor, I don't think you can look any further than Stephen Taylor.
Yeah, again, you look at it and think, Mr. Newcastle loved the club. Probably, if he could, would have been a one-man club if given the contracts and everything else. But it's a tough position to nail down for one. If there's only, you look at Carragher, there's not many Jamie Carragher's about, is there? So yeah, Tails goes in there because he loves the club and he wanted nothing but success. But like I said earlier, he on the ball, he was a little bit suspect now and again. Loved like a big diag, stuff like that, but sometimes it looked like a bit of a hot potato at his feet and stuff like that. And he used to get a little bit of stick from, especially Joey. Joey's shout to him in like if we were doing any possession and he'd give the ball away was, "It's not a bomb." I just feel like, oh no. But as a package, Tails goes in there because he's Mr. Newcastle.
Also great for set pieces in more than one way.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, wasn't your first assist against West Brom for a Stephen Taylor goal?
It was, yeah. Corner whipped in, 3-2 win, West Brom away. See you later.
Taylor,
yeah.
Matty, how do you know that? Like,
I'm sure plenty of people know that. That's why I've got a girlfriend. She just loves my Newcastle knowledge.
So, who have you got alongside Stephen Taylor?
Best ball playing centre half for me I ever played with is Colo. I mean, if only you could see him on a daily basis, he would 9 times out of 10 be one, like, if not the best player in training every day. His attitude, his commitment to everything. Colo goes in there. He was, for me, he was the best centre half I ever played with, and alongside.
Ryan, what was your
captain?
Yeah, I would say yeah. I've had a few good captains in my past. Yeah, arguably, probably my favourite captain. Yeah.
What was your opinion of him when you first went to the club? Because obviously that was the relegation season, and when we had Colaccini, his stock was pretty low. Like, a lot of people weren't big fans of him, and then we go down, and he became this stalwart behemoth at the back, like you said, playing the ball as well. And then he took that into the next 2 seasons. For me, the next 2 seasons in the Premier League, I've not seen a centre half quite like him for Newcastle. He's always in my favourite 11. That Colaccini. So did you feel like? Did you see that sort of lack of confidence when you first met him, and then it grew when we got relegated then promoted?
100%, yeah. Because when even playing against him when I was at Wigan, we would target him a bit because could see he hadn't adapted to the English way of playing. And he's come over, he's got long curly hair, and you're just like, what, test this fella, he's not comfortable. But then it's only when you actually play with with these players, and like you say, he's settled in, he's found his feet, he's comfortable, fans like him, grows in confidence, and then he turns into a completely different player. And that's what he was. I played with that player who I watched him change as a player, as a person, gets the armband, and yeah, by far the best centre half I'd ever played with.
Yeah, also a player who managed to break his spine clearing a ball. He tried an overhead kick on the byline towards our own. In fact, it was close at the corner flag. He didn't even have to do it, but he makes this acrobatic overhead kick and breaks his back doing it.
I remember him breaking Peter Crouch's teeth as well.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
So people that haven't listened to it, there is an episode on the Peter Crouch podcast where he says that Colaccini knocks his teeth out, and the physio comes and the doctor comes on the field, and Peter Crouch is lying there just saying, "Oh, just find me teeth and put them back in," as if you could just slot your teeth back in.
Yeah. No, I remember that game actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so he said he was picking his teeth up off the ground. It's not the first time, because Colaccini also kicked Demba Ba in the face, and I think that was on Demba's return to St. James's Park as well.
He was naughty, like he used to go after Suarez a bit, whether that was the South American.
He got sent off once, I think.
Yeah,
sent off,
yeah. He had a little switch in him where you'd be like, no, like you could see it coming 10 seconds before, and you're like, no, like he had a flip of a switch. Him telling you now. Obviously,
do you feel as if you need that though, Ryan? Do you feel as if in that squad you need that one player who is a bit edgy, thinking at any point he could burst here?
You would like to say yes, but you like it in a controlled manner. You don't the last thing you want to do is go down to 10 men. And with people like him, it's either he'll win the ball or it's not the ball. And he doesn't even care if it's the ball or not. Like, he's going purposely to give someone one. And yeah, I don't mind a bit of that, but be a little bit careful.
Yeah, I think it might be in a pre-season game, or it might be in a European qualifier, one of them. And there was this I think we're playing a Portuguese team. I might be wrong, Matt. You'll remember.
Yeah. No, pre-season.
Was it Portuguese team? Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
And Colo, this kid, he must be about 5 foot tall. I swear to God. And Colo's just got him by his neck, just strangling this kid. And I think he got sent off. Did he not get sent off, Matty, in that game?
Both players got
sent off. He's literally, honestly, there's a photo in it. It
looks like he's killing him. It looks like he's legit
it replicates.
The guy, yeah.
Do you know when Homer Simpson strangles Bart Simpson? He's just strangling. It's like that. And I'm thinking, it's pre-season, Colo. What are you doing?
Yeah, he was. Well, again, it didn't matter whether it was pre-season or an FA Cup final or a Champions League game or anything, whatever he was playing in. That switch. As soon as he crossed the line, it just had that like mentality of same. This game's the same as the game I'm playing next week and the week after.
Also got sent off in a derby, which he shouldn't have been got sent off in. It was a shoulder barge. He got sent off, which got rescinded as well, which was infuriating. So moving across to the left hand side, mate.
Okay, I play with this lad from when I was about 10 years old. Then we went our separate ways. And when I went to Tranmere, he went to Wigan. Then we met back up again when I went to Wigan. We travelled in together every day, spent a lot of time with him. And then he went on to be an absolute stalwart for Everton. Is Leighton Baines. Because, the career he had was just too good to leave him out. And I had to take my Newcastle head off just for this position because he was, I'd never really ever seen it coming from when I was a kid to what he then became. But when he became, he'll go down as probably Everton's best ever left back because of the goals, assists, everything. He was just he was a left back that, you put in the bracket of Ashley Cole, people like that, and then these players are Premier League greats in that position. So for me, you know, it was a toss up between him and Jose, because Jose was an absolute bull. He was a machine, Jose NBK. When he got motoring up that wing, there was no stopping him. But I played with Leighton all my life, until we obviously, you know, went our separate ways, met up. But you know, we lived around the corner from each other, and it was too hard to leave him out of my team.
I'll always remember when it was when he was about to move to Everton. Sam Allardyce was Newcastle manager at the time, and Sam Allardyce was signing a lot of players for Newcastle, and there was some heavy links to trying to get Leighton Baines, and it was one player where I just thought, I hope we can get him. I hope we can get him, because a bit like yourself, free kick taker, you know, dangerous from set pieces. But he's ended up going, you know, following his heritage and his I think it must have been his boyhood club, was it, Ryan? Everton.
Do you know what? He was never a big football fan, which is obviously bizarre. You always think footballers are obviously, they have a team and everything else, and you grew up. But I never ever got the sense that like he watched football. Like,
so maybe just staying close to home, then, I guess.
Yeah, he obviously came out in the press afterwards and said he was an Everton fan. So yeah, but he wasn't a big Everton fan. He wasn't like a, you know, go on the game next week. Like Everton fan. He was, you know, just an Everton fan. And then obviously he then gets the chance to go and play for Everton. It's like, well, you know, obviously he's going to be a huge Everton fan now. But Jordan, like his younger days, you wouldn't have never have said, you would never have known who he supported.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So moving in. So you've got two in front of this back four. Are these two defensive players?
One is a. You can say he is a little bit, but he's a ball player.
Okay. Let's go with your defensive one. Let's go your defensive one first of all.
Okay. Well, we're going to go with a guy I spoke about in the last podcast, in the last one, when we talked about him kicking trees down. Is Czech, because Czech was probably the hardest player I ever played with, in terms of thou shall not pass. Like, you will not pass me. We used to do 1v1 training, 2v2 training, 3v3, and let's say for instance you're on the opposite team to me. Manager will say, sort yourselves out in numbers 1 to, say there's 5 of us. You're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everyone's got a number. And in the opposite team, Czech is there. Nobody does want to match up with the same number that Czech is, because I'll tell you, you won't win. And you'll go off with some form of cut on your ankle or your shin, or you're just going to be lobbed on the floor. You may as well just forget it, because that was what he just threw that fear in you, that you're just like, oh, not Czech. So he goes in there, because not only was he tough, he got round that pitch, especially when he first came into Newcastle, he was an unknown, and everyone was like, oh, who's this fella? And then he come in, and straight away after 10 games, I remember the links with moves he was getting was like, you know, this guy's the real deal. We found a little gem here. And he obviously ended up staying for a couple of years. And that form didn't really stay. He didn't sustain that form as such. He didn't really get on the ball as much as what he did when he first came in. He used to love getting on the ball, being dead busy, but he just became a little bit more robust and be a bit more defence-minded when a bit later on. But Czech was, for me, like that little sitter in front of the back four. he'll mop anything up.
He kind of followed the trajectory of the club to a certain degree, I would say. I mean, he came in off the crest of a wave of us being promoted. We had a good season, even though Houghton left. And then when we finished fifth, I mean, he had a huge part to play in that. And then as things got, let's say, worse, I'd say his sort of performances didn't stand out as much, and he was in and out of the team. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, no, I do, yeah. But like I said, then when he come in and everyone was, wow, who's this guy then? And it just sort of spiraled a little bit in the wrong direction. And yeah, as you know, obviously now you look back, I did notice that, because if he'd have carried on that form, someone Champions League would have snapped him up.
Yeah.
Look at obviously like a Kante. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what that he was our Kante when he came in into Newcastle.
I think he's a very underrated in the Premier League. I think there's probably a lot of other fans from different clubs that wouldn't even look at Tiote and thinking he was a good player. But I think as a Newcastle fan's perspective, we did appreciate Tiote when he was, and God rest his soul. And he was a great lad as well. I used to be a delivery driver, and one of my patches was Jesmond, where a lot of the younger players, the Newcastle players, used to live. And I used to bump into the likes of Danny Simpson every day. Used to deliver him, have a bit crack with him. And Tiote moved into Shola Amiobi's house. Shola wasn't living there at this point. I will say it. But there's an episode.
Like a Kevin Nolan, Andy Carroll job. No?
Yeah, it wasn't like that. Imagine those two living in the same house. But it's the same house where Shola Amiobi done his episodes of Cribs. It was that house.
Oh yeah.
And Tiote was living there, and I had a parcel for next door, but I recognised the registration plate. It just said Tiote, and it was a white, old American style car that he had. And I thought, I'm not even going to try and deliver this to the correct house. I'm just going to go to Tiote's house to see if he'll accept this parcel. I went and he wasn't there, but his family were there. And I caught up with him a couple of days later, and it was before the derby, the 5-1 derby, if I remember right. And I was having a bit crack with him, and he was there with his pals. And I was like, I'm going to have to get him to sign something. And I didn't have anything. And I just went, will you sign me van? And I had this massive yellow and green van. I give him a marker pen, and I swear to God, he just signed the side of the van. Checked Tiote 24, and I went back in the office there. I was chuffed a bit, beaming I am. Like, met Tiote, blah, blah, blah. And I went to the gaffer. I said, you signed me van. And you should have saw the gaffer's face. Massive Sunderland fan. You're taking the piss. I'm like, no, it's out there. He signed the van. He made us scrub that van.
Did he? Yeah, no way. Sign me van.
Imagine, like, obviously, he's from Ivory Coast, and there's this Geordie lad going, sign me van. You must think, who's this? Who's this?
I've had some random requests for like, sign me arm, sign me coat, or like, something random, but like never have I had someone asking me to sign his van.
Sign me van. There's a photo looking around on Instagram somewhere of Tiote signing me van. So who you got alongside him?
Well, he played alongside him a lot, which was Johan. You can't leave Johan out. He was proper footballer. I think, again, went on, obviously, went to PSG. Didn't really get too many games, but he went to PSG really because he was just, he had that silky play about him. That like aura as well, where, he could step up and play that next level. Just a proper footballer, goes in there, passing, had a little bit of nastiness about him as well. Could chuck a little bad one in.
He could not.
I
remember a tackle against Jay Spearing. I think it was Jay Spearing away at Anfield. He scored that game, and there was a tackle he threw in, and I just thought, and I had a couple of Liverpool fans as friends, and they were just saying, "Oh, he's the dirtiest player." And you soon realised. I mean, he came back against Palace as well, and he put a number on. I think it was Yedlin. I'm not sure if it was Yedlin, Chris. I don't know if you remember that. No, it wasn't Yedlin. Yeah. It wasn't Yedlin because it was just before we went down. But anyway, I'll always remember Lascelles getting in his face, and he did have a little bit of bite about him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but do it in like a clever way.
Very subtle, wasn't it?
Yeah. Whereas when we was chatting about Carlo before, it was obvious. But Cabs was. I used to, and obviously we'd taken set plays. I spent a lot of time with Cabs, and the quality he had was top draw.
Yeah. He just, like you said though, he just had that aura about him as well, didn't he? Like you said, he's a silky player. But I think, obviously, Newcastle players with Kabay, we thought he's an absolute superstar. An absolute superstar. And obviously, it didn't end too well. Obviously, he refused to get in the coach for one of the games. Which was he trying to force a move to Arsenal? Was it Man City? It was one of those two clubs he's trying to force a move to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, again, that wouldn't have gone down too well in the club and in the dressing room. But you're looking back and you remember him, and I always remember him when he very first signed, and I think he turned up in a suit and all that.
He did,
and he looked the nuts from the off, and every day he'd be the best. I mean, if there was one player in my team who best dressed is him every day. Like he spent time in the morning on his outfit for sure every day, and it would always be new gear, and you're just like, you can't carry this on, surely, like every day, like. But yeah, he did every day, like new gear, smelled great as well, always topped up with aftershave, just like kept it up. Do you know what I mean? Fair play to him, because sometimes you want to just chuck a trackie on and
Yeah.
Nah, not him. He had his ripped jeans on with his high top boots, and you're like, yeah, he looks cool. Him and there's me and my trackie looking like let's go.
Who smelled better? Was it Johan Gabai or Alan Pardew? Because I'm not sure if you know this, but there's a rumor going around that Alan Pardew wears dupe.
Oh, does he? Yeah. Well, he definitely won't sound good then. No, cabs for me all day long. He'll have the expensive stuff on.
Yeah, he'd have like unicorn piss or something.
Yeah, very hard to get hold of.
Right. In fact, that partnership of those two, once again, I've said that Toyota probably was underrated in the Premier League, but that partnership, those two, they were great for this club. And that season that Matty mentioned earlier, that season that we finished fifth, those two together were
fantastic.
If you knew you're starting a game with those two side by side, you knew you had the best of both worlds with those.
Yeah. No, they were good, and obviously I got to play a lot that season, and to play with them, they were two players you definitely rely on. Home away, they would, solid player in check, and then your flair and your all round play with cabs, like
And I would probably go as far to say, like, since both yourself and Johan left the club, I've never really been confident when we get a free kick on the edge of the box.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
totally
when
agree.
we get it, I'm thinking we probably haven't got a chance here.
Yeah, I mean, I when I do watch it, I mean, I think Almiron has one, and
I would say Townsend had a shout maybe.
Yeah,
Townsend was
for 6 months.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone in that team now. Go on, he'll rifle one in. I mean, I'm sure even Callum's tried to have a few, and there's not really just one. You go on, like it's over to you. Because I remember we played Chelsea away years ago. I think we ended up getting a draw last game of the season, possibly, and we must have got about 4 or 5 free kicks. And I put one over at the wall, everything else, and then Joey then comes over and like, I want this one, and then I could see Pard shouting on, no, you have it, you take it, because it might not be going so well, but it's just that one that might go in, and he doesn't want Joey on it because Joey doesn't practice. But Joey's like, well, you've had a few now, let me have one. But I always just recall Beckham against Greece must have had 10. But one mattered, and in a manager's
he had an
eyes,
absolute stinker that game with free kicks, mate. He did until that last one.
Was that Chelsea? Was that Chelsea one, the one where he hit Jonas and it went in? Was that one where Jonas hit off his back and it goes in? And he's run away claiming it.
Yeah. I know they stole me goal, didn't they? Massive deflection, but yeah.
So who you got in front of these two, mate? Well, you've gone for 3 in front of these, is that right?
Yeah,
so we'll start with the centre. Who's in front? Bang in the centre.
Okay, so well, Johan is like a 6 and Czech is like a 4, because Johan won't just sit like Czech. So then, but I've gone for like a false 10-8, and it's just for his goals. His goals, I mean, his goals basically won us the championship, and he was just always in the right place at the right time. And I always wondered how he did it. And I always wondered how he managed his body, because he loved the point. And how, because if I had a drink, I couldn't train well for days. But this guy could. And not that like I wanted to be a drinker, but I just didn't know how he managed it. It was big Kevin Nolan.
Yeah.
I think anybody listening now knows exactly the player that you were going to say on that build-up, mate.
And his goals, you look back at that championship season
Some
without
huge
him.
goals.
Some massive goals, last-minute winners, hat tricks, and And again, it all didn't really end too well with Kev. I think he wanted a longer contract because he wanted some security. Maybe he wasn't getting it. Then obviously Big Sam and West Ham and the connection, and then not 100% sure on the whole deal as to why he left. The big voice in the dressing room, big personality, good captain. You know, if there was a team meeting, he'd be up, he'd be speaking, like, you know, and you can see why he's gone straight into management and coaching. And I was very surprised that Moyes taking him in, because he's not a Moyes, you know, he's never been in Moyes' team, but he obviously knows he's a big character, big voice, ex-West Ham, get him in. And he can be my middleman.
He was back alongside Andy Carroll as well, wasn't he, when he went to West Ham?
Yeah.
So, you know, but for what he did when I played with him and the goals he scored, he goes in there just on goals alone. He was just used to pop up, mate, honestly, corner at the back post, boom, little tap in, and he's off doing his chicken dance. You're like,
yes.
If I was stood there, it wouldn't come to my head. I guarantee you that. And it just always fell for him. And, you know, like we said then, he scored some really important goals.
Especially in that championship season. I'll always remember a goal away at Preston. I'll always remember a last-minute winner against Doncaster. But again, it seemed like he could score sometimes just different types of goals, because like you said, them little late runs, headers and tap-ins, but then like his overhead kick against Sheffield United the night we was in the championship, like it was crazy. Yeah,
he did. He'd never pick the ball up 30 yards out, bang. He would just be in the box somewhere, and he'd find whether it would be a volley or a header or an overhead, like you said. He just used to be naturally like in the right place at the right time.
Well, you look at, obviously, you've gone down in folklore and cement yourself as a cult hero for scoring 1 goal against Sunderland. Imagine scoring 3 in 1 game against Sunderland.
4 in a season
went through the roof. 4 in a season, his stocks went through the roof. And like you said, it was right place, right time with Kevin Nolan in that game.
Of course, but I mean, yours might tell me different, but I never really hear as much of it as maybe what it should.
You're right. I would say you're right. I think maybe it has something to do with, I don't know. We were all gutted when he left. Well, I'm speaking for myself, really. I was gutted when he left. And I just think that maybe, I don't know whether it's your history with the club and just you were there a bit longer, and it was that 1-0. It's like you said, imagine if Dan Gosling would have scored that goal at the end of that 1-0. The fact that you're synonymous with that 1-0. But I mean, Kevin Nolan, he had his own chant about, you know, scoring against the Mackhams and stuff. But you are right. I would say that your goal at the Stadium of Light is probably mentioned more than a hat-trick at St James's Park, whether that's right or wrong. I mean, I still love that hat-trick. What a special day that was.
I think it's probably because of the whole display in that game, to be honest with you, because we literally battered Sunderland in that game.
Sure, got a brace. Yeah, it was.
How Andy Carroll didn't score, Jesus, because the amount of chances that he had, and for some reason it just wasn't finding the back of the net. Then he hit the crossbar with a shot, didn't he?
For Shawler's goal. And
Shawler comes in and hits it in. But you say that, Ryan. You say that about Kevin Nolan, but I actually named my firstborn after him. So my firstborn is called Nolan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, very nice.
So firstborn's called Nolan.
So he's my little. I won't give him a free roll, but I'll give him a license to
get in the box. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the left-hand side of him now.
Okay, so on the left, I have to put him in because he's probably my favourite ever player I played with. Just as a player, right, in training, he didn't even know what he was going to do, and you're gonna know who he is straight away, because he could run through 4 players, and somehow he'd still have the ball, and it could have gone bing, 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 and he'll still somehow have it. And I don't know how he did it. Again, you know, he didn't run past people like Messi does and all that, but he still had the ball. And obviously, you know, his work to come back into playing at the top level just shows you what a guy and what a person he is. So Jonas goes in because I played in that season with him, and without him, and if I had anyone else in front of me that year, they would not have, I'd say, not kept me in the team, but they wouldn't have helped me nowhere near as much as him, because he knew I weren't a natural left back. So he knew that if we were under the cosh, or if I was faced with a 1v1 or a 2v1, I could rely on him to not be up the pitch. He would be back with me, but then in attack, he'd be up the pitch. The engine on him was superb. And like I say before, he wasn't really a left winger that would run down the line and whip one in. He somehow bumble one in, and like, you know, you might create a chance, but a goal that always sticks in mind, and I love it because it's a typical Jonas goal, is Wolves away. Bumbles his way through, shells a dummy to, I think it was Roger Johnson. He goes off that way, and then he puts it in. But you know, I just love, like, as a guy, he was just like my favourite person I've ever played with. If I could, like, and it showed on that picture before, you know, when you got it up, that, you know, he's a guy I just have so much admiration for.
I think yeah, with Jonas, or Matty, before you jump in, I think with Jonas, like you mentioned there, Ryan, he complements the player that's playing behind him massively. And like you said, if had been any other player in front of you, then they wouldn't have give you that much protection, I want to say, because Jonas was an absolute grafter. He was a massive grafter. Yeah. You could tell by the end of the game he was blown out of his arse half the time.
Yeah.
I think he epitomised the Newcastle. What everyone says, doesn't matter where you're from, Argentina, London, Newcastle, whatever. That if you try hard, we can see that you're grafting. We might not be happy with the results we're getting, and we might think, oh, he needs changing or whatever. But we're not going to slag you off, because we knew he'd leave everything on the pitch. And just to echo what Kris was saying, I'll always remember, you know, when young Shane Ferguson came into the team just because of injuries, you'd always tell that he'd be dropping deeper to sort of cover him. Like you've just said about you being in an unnatural left back position, it sort of helped that. I think he played left back for. Did he play left back for Argentina at the time?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So that must have helped to have that sort of a guy who sort of knows, all right, I know where I need to be. He might be in trouble, so I'll come back and double up on whoever's running at him.
Yeah. No, he was a joy to play with him, to be behind, because you knew he just had your back, like you say. And he had that inkling that he's not a left back here. Whereas though a lot of wingers will go, well, he's a left back, oh, you can do that. Like, you know,
that's your job, basically.
Yeah. Whereas he knew, and you know, the donkey work he used to put in was unbelievable. And he'd be one of the first players I'd go thank after the game, like, you know, because the work he put in, like you say. And we used to get stats every Monday and see work rate, everything else, because the cameras that are in the stadium pick up on all the running stats and how much sprinting you've done, to walk and to jog and to everything. And then you know, he's always top of the pile for like as high intense work.
I'd imagine a great presence to just be in the dressing room as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and that's why I just had a really good relationship with him, because he was just dead easy to bounce off. And if you weren't having a good day, you didn't have to sit by him for 5 minutes, and you'd just be like smiling again. You know, he's that type of fella.
So the other side, mate, the right-hand side.
The complete opposite, Jonas.
We know what's going.
We know what's coming.
But the best player I ever played with, Hatem Ben Arfa, without doubt, the most talented footballer I ever played with. Who was it? I think I got asked a question on something not long ago, and I think it might have been on Instagram, and I was just doing like a Q&A. I think just myself, probably just bored in lockdown. I was like, anyone got a question? And I could not keep up with the questions. I was like, I didn't expect that many questions, but like one of them was best player you ever played with. And I've played with some very good players, but natural talent was him. But then on the flip side of that, like I'm saying, I get a message off Robbie Keane cheers, mate, and all that, like, you know. And I'm like, no, like, you know, you obviously, you know, put different positions and all this, like trying to like cover my own back. But I mean, the seasons when he was on it, I mean, you know, you look at them Bolton goal, that Bolton Blackburn goal, rare occasions then, but come from special people, and that was him. And if he just had that switch to go on, and then after games turn it off, but then on a game he has to turn it on again, and he could do it for 90 minutes, he would have been like top club all the way playing Champions League football. And I just think that's why like some managers just haven't touched him, because that switch. He just goes, yeah, go ahead. I'll do it for 10 minutes.
Do you feel as if with Hatem, he needs that right sort of relationship behind him, not just necessarily outside of football? Because I know you mentioned on the previous podcast last month there that it might be in the people that he was hanging around with outside of football and outside of the training ground, whoever he was knocking around with then. But he's gone, and obviously he's had a fallout with the majority of managers that he's worked under. One of them being the current manager when he went to Hull, said that he's the most laziest player that he's ever seen. And you can probably understand why. If he's not pulling his weight in training, then fair enough. But is Hatem that sort of player? If he's not performing in training, he's still part of the team come match day because he does have that ability in him.
Yeah, but you've got to trust that player to do that, though. And I suppose as a manager, there's only so many times you can do that. And if it's still not twigging, you just go, right, I have to cut my ties with him, because you can't have a player who does it 1 in 5, especially that you're relying on. So you can understand why managers can fall out with him. And that, again, it comes from, like I said before, if he had that mental attitude of a lot of them players who are in my team, of like wanting to do it every single day. You know, I wouldn't have got the chance to play with him, because he'd have been playing Champions League all his life.
I think the majority of the players that you mentioned so far have had that captain quality about them as well. And if you're looking for a captain, Hatem Ben Arfa is probably the last person on your list.
Of course, yeah, you know, because again, you couldn't really, you wouldn't rely on him as heavily as what you would with, you know, Kevin Nolan, Colo, people like that, who were captains. You would never have gone, right, Hatem, you're the captain today because you're a leader, because you didn't know what Hatem was going to turn up.
Yeah. No. Anything I'd like?
No. I mean, everything Ryan said totally makes sense. I mean, look at his track record. Look where he's been since. He's had limited success, and some. I think he won a cup in France recently, but it's just he keeps moving from club to club, and for me, there can only be. The only variable is his own attitude, you know. So I mean, it is a massive shame. I know we've got one of the members of the Gallowgateshots parish, Mark, who does not think much about Hatem Ben Arfa, thinks he's one of the most overrated players Newcastle have had. But we have to always argue with him and just say, like, you know, it's not the case. Like he was a special player. I think Kevin Keegan said something along the lines of, you know when a goal's special, when there's that moment of silence just before the ball hits the back of the net. And I'll always remember that Bolton goal. You just up on your seat every time he skips past the play, and as soon as he puts it past the keeper, Bogdan, I think, was in goal that day. And you just thought, oh my God, what have I just witnessed? You know, these days you'd probably be worried that there's been some sort of infringement for VAR and it'll get cancelled out, so you can't celebrate. But thankfully that wasn't the case that day, and it was such a special goal. And like you said, great player. Just a shame his attitude wasn't to match it, you know.
I think the greatest thing about those goals as well, it's not necessarily the skill involved. It's the fact that players are trying the hardest to wipe him out. Not even trying to get the ball, they're just trying to take him down because they know what's coming.
Yeah. Well, you try and train with that every day then. You know what I mean? Yeah, it became habit to try and wipe him out. But yeah, no, very, very, you know, I think when we said earlier, like wasted talent, by far it was him.
So finally, your last player on the team sheet, probably, is this the hardest one that you had to choose from, or was this pretty easy for you?
Well, I mean, I look at it, and I have two, and one is a legend in the football striking world, and one I've got them both written down, but I've been swayed to the one that really should go in. If it's people I've played with, then he really should go in, because he was. I mean, even though I only got to play with him for a couple of months and a handful of games, wow, he was good. And that was the guy I spoke about before, who knows he's a good player, when he's texting you saying, "Why aren't I like your best player?" But the other player I had was Demba Ba, and he's down there because he was a very, very good player, all-round striker, and that's why he goes and plays. Wasn't just a 6-yard box striker. Could take a free kick, by the way. I think he scored one at home against, was it West Brom?
West Brom, yeah.
Yeah. Could just, his all-round play was very, very good. And then it was just didn't really click when Pappy's come in, because the old voodoo doll and all that.
He got shifted out, didn't he? He got shifted out to the left-hand side when Pappy's came in.
Yeah, and and Pappy's always said that Demba, or the other way around, because obviously they were into all that kind of gear. Then one of them said that because when the other one wasn't scoring and he was scoring, he's put a spell on me and all that, and it's like, what? Like, that was what they believed in. But
is that what was going on behind the scenes? Or blaming each other for each other's downfalls?
Yeah, like I promise you, when the rumor was that if like one scored, and maybe when Pappy's come in and he was scoring from everywhere, and then Demba went and scored, and I think the rumors were flying around the dressing room that like he's saying that he's done a voodoo doll on him and all that, like, and he's basically to take his goals off him and all that, like, which was obviously really bizarre.
Crackers.
But because I think I said natural striker in my last one was Demba. Just a freaky striker was Pappy's, but Demba was a really, really good striker, all-round striker. But I just think I can't leave Robbie Keane out my team. I mean, how can you leave Robbie Keane out your team? He's played everywhere he's gone and scored hundreds of goals. And I said before, with him and Kevin, there's goals. Hard-time can chip in, and it's just like I can't leave Robbie Keane out my team. For that little amount of time, I trained every day and played with him. But, didn't matter that we were in India. I got to see stuff that I'd never seen from any other striker. Even at his age of about 35, 36, I got to see stuff that I'd never seen before. The movement, his brain was just different level.
Yeah, I think the thing that frustrates Newcastle fans is not just Demba Ba. It's probably been a number of players where they've left the club to go on to what they believe is going to be bigger and better things, and ended up sitting on the bench for clubs, and that infuriates me. Demba went to Chelsea, and you can say the same with Loa Gremi. He went to Chelsea, and Loa Gremi was very, very underrated. He had glimpses of Thierry Henry about him. He was fantastic no matter where you put him across that front three. If it was left side, right side, in the middle. And Demba, once again, he went to Chelsea. Of course, he would have picked up a bigger wage packet, and yes, he did go on and get a few medals, but how much impact did he have? Let's be honest. He could have gone down as a hero at this football club.
Yeah. Well, you look, and if you ask, a lot of Chelsea fans will be like, Demba Ba, oh yeah, I remember he played for Chelsea. Whereas, like you say, if he'd have stayed at Newcastle a little bit longer, and then he could have been there for years, and like you say, gone on to be a hero. But obviously, sometimes when you get foreign players, money can talk, and that whole, they'll see London as a big attraction. They won't see the fact that Newcastle is way more passionate. They won't see that than Chelsea. They'll just see, oh, London. Oh, yeah, go on, I'll go to London. Like, because it's like the football world, the passion is so different with Newcastle fans to Chelsea fans, and that's clear to see. But players coming in, foreign players, will just be like, "Oh yeah, I can go and live in London," like that. That's what they'll be thinking, And I bet you Denver was no different. Yeah, okay, Chelsea were probably fighting for Champions League, leagues, cups, a little bit more than what Newcastle were. But like you said, if he could have stayed on, who knows what he could have created for himself as a person, as a player at Newcastle.
For me, I mean, I don't think it's a bold claim, but I think Demba Ba's the best striker we've had since Shearer. In terms of his overall play, I just thought he was an absolutely complete striker. That season we finished 5th, hat-tricks against Blackburn, the hat-tricks against Stoke. He was just quality. And it's funny how you've mentioned Keane there, because it sort of wraps it up in a little bow. Papa Cissé's debut against Aston Villa, I think, was the only game that Demba Ba and Papa Cissé scored in the same game. Ba scores the first goal. We had an equaliser against us for Villa, and Cissé scores a brilliant winner. But who scored the equaliser for Villa? Mr. Robbie Keane.
Yeah.
That sort of encapsulates your thinking there, mate.
Yeah. Well, I nearly broke my leg in that game. I had to go off injured.
Oh, really?
That was in the build up to Denver's goal. If you remember, the ball comes across. I've gone to have a shot, and Stephen Warner has absolutely cemented me, and it fell to Denver. He scored. I'm lying in a heap. He's off celebrating, and I'm off in an ambulance to hospital.
No.
Thought I broke my leg, yeah. But it's like hematoma came on my leg, which was obviously like deep swelling. And then, my leg just went boop. Not like seeing cartoons. Like
just swollen.
My leg just went like that, yeah. So the ambulance came. And yeah, no one ever thanks me for the assist.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate. Finally, now that we've got you starting 11, mate. Fine, we'll end it on this one. Manager, who are you choosing? And I'm chucking a curveball at you here, mate. Because I didn't mention this in the build up this, but if you're picking one manager who's managed you in your career, who are you putting on the sideline?
Do you know what? I've had some really good managers who I've enjoyed working under. Even when I go back to my Tranmere days, I worked under Brian Little. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He what a guy. Like, he came in, I'm a young kid. He's an oldish guy. Used to come in and join in the little boxes used to do. And all he did was try and like nutmeg people. But he was just lovely fella. Good manager as well, really knowledgeable. Helped me a little bit to move on. And then I went on Paul Jewell. He was like just different from Brian Little, complete opposite end of the spectrum. Could lose his rag, mate, like flip of a switch. So I enjoyed working under him. But then it was only when and then I came to Newcastle, and my one manager that sticks out because of what he done for me, and not only when I played, but when I was injured. He made me feel like I was always involved with the team, no matter what. Because I bet it's tough for a manager to get sold out. You can't play for a year. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with him then? But he never ever left me to just do my own thing and see you when you're fit. Was Pards. Pards was, for me, my best man manager I ever had in my life. And I loved our relationship we had, because he wasn't everyone's cup of tea, and I knew that. Even not only as a person, but as a manager to come into the club, he wasn't everyone's choice. But as a player, you've got to deal with what you've got. It wasn't my choice. I didn't choose him. But then you build your relationship with him, and over time, and especially when he never left me out, and he phoned me when I was in America, and he told me that I was going to be doing some scouting for the club. It's like, well, do you know what? You didn't have to ring me. You don't have to get me involved, but you want me involved. So I just became really close with them, especially whilst I had that time out. So for me, not the best tactician I ever seen. Sometimes couldn't even pronounce players' names in meetings. If they were awkward, he'd be like, "What's his name?" Like, and then and then but I just got on really well with him. We sort of had a good relationship. So for me, I have to say Pards.
That speaks volumes, to be fair, that he's gone out of his way to keep you part of a close knit, in not necessarily in the playing staff, but obviously having some involvement with the football club. Obviously saying that you're going to go out and scout, and I remember seeing photos here, sat in the likes of boxes and in the stands there, especially, and even like you said, when you were injured, you were still in and around that first team and going into the dressing room at full time as well. Now, I would imagine, obviously, Pardew had a huge impact in making that happen for you.
Yeah, no, and speaking before, because obviously we had a lot of fondness, like the French. One player that sticks to mind was, so say if we were playing Arsenal next week, and I'd do a little report and stuff, and all the players knew I was going to watch games for the club and do a little report. I'd put it on his desk. It's, geez, how was it? Blah, blah, blah. Whether he read it, I don't know. He was always like, yeah, pop it on my desk. Yeah, I'll have a little look at that later. It didn't bother me if he read it or not, because I felt like I'd done something. But players were then coming up to me, and the one player who sticks to mind asking me for just information on wingers was Matthew Dabushi. He would always come to me and say, like, how did he play last week? And what was he good at? And I'd give him a little rundown of like the left winger, and it's like, well, even if I just help him in a little percentage, I've done something.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I would imagine that there's not many people know how much of an impact Pardew had in your career, especially in that time and difficult time when you were injured, because it did happen a couple of times at Newcastle, and to be involved, then that would have just made you feel 10 foot tall at that point.
Yeah, no, it did. Yeah, and any trips away, and I wish he didn't take me to Benfica, because it cost me a few €100 in a new telly. But I was never going to be available for that game. But he took me because I was a part of his squad. There was people he left at home, but I'm injured, and he's making sure I'm with the team going to these games. So I look back and think, like, if I do ever, I do want to become a manager, I'll take things, especially from him, how he treated me. And I know some other players might think different, and he didn't treat me like that, but I'll then take the things what he gave to me and try and pass them on in my experiences when they do come along.
Yeah, makes sense. Matty, have you got anything to add before we wrap this one up, mate?
No, not really. I mean, it's you look over like Newcastle's managers, and I know Pardew's tenure didn't end too well. I know you must have been there for a lot of times where the fans were pretty much against him because of the forms we were in. But with you thinking so much of Alan Pardew, was that tough for you? See the fans having that looking of horns.
Yeah, but again, it's a results-based business, and when it's not got off to the right start in any way, I was like, as a player, when you're up there, Ashley's puppet and this, that, and the other, and he's only come in because he owes Ashley money and this, that. We as players, I read a lot. You know what I mean? You wanted to keep in the loop. So it's not got off to the best start, let's say, and then obviously during times when form dips, it's quite toxic, and I couldn't imagine how he's got his arms folded on the side, because he never really ever sat down, and I used to like managers who sat down, and just because then he sat down, they're happy when they sat down. They've always stand up, arms crossed, and shouting on. He probably was, I bet you at times he just wishes there was a hole in the floor and he'd just jump in.
Yeah. Right. So let's call it a night on this one. As always, Ryan, thanks very much for joining us tonight. I've really enjoyed this one, to be honest with you. Going through the likes of the players that you played alongside there, even though you have done them about disservice and not put them you're starting to love him, mate.
I just went on Wikipedia, and the stats of goals are just they outweigh each other. You know, one outweighs the other one with how many goals he scored in his career. That's all.
Don't worry, mate. We're in control of this, so I'm pretty sure we can edit it to keep them up, all right, mate. But yeah, thanks as always, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we will get you on another time in the future, because even if it's obviously, I think we've covered most of your time at Newcastle United, but it's just great to hear your insight in regards to looking at it from a professional's point of view, in regards to what happens on and off the field, and especially with you having that connection to a lot of the players who are still playing at this moment in time, and obviously coaches as well. And it's great to hear your opinions on that.
Yeah. No, pleasure, lads. Anytime. Like you said in the last one, I'll see you on a footy pitch and see what you've got for me.
Yeah, mate. So definitely, when we're allowed to do so, we will definitely arrange something where we can all get together and let's see who's best at free kicks.
Who's in goal first?
Well, mate, I'm bringing Johan goodbye with me. Thanks very much, mate. Thanks everybody who is either watching or listening. It does mean a lot if you do go and subscribe to the YouTube channel or podcast wherever you are watching or listening to this. Thanks very much for your continuous support. Cheers, boys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, mate.